Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas. And with me today, I don't have any of my panelists. I just have the GOAT himself. Guest. It's your second or third time on the show. 5 Reasons own co-host of 5 on the Floor. Maybe the most respected beat writer in this damn city. Brady Hawk.
What an intro. No, thank you for having me back on.
It's certainly not Alex, and it's certainly not Ethan. Now, it's between like you, Ira, and Anthony. I don't know if Barry counts as a beat guy. Barry's just like an everything guy.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I don't know. He's the king of it all. He just wears too many hats. I don't know. There's too many people down here to just discredit. I'm not
it's no discredit. Everyone's great. I'm just I'm singing your praise. Listen, Christian Hernandez, our statistician here, once described Barry at an event as a news-seeking missile, and I think that's really accurate. No one's doing it like Barry or Ira, by the way. Ira's like the king of scrums. I watch Ira in a scrum, and it's like watching LeBron James. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I'm like whoever the 15th man was on that roster because I'm not a scrum guy. I'm more
like in the back. Are you the Shandell Richardson of scrums?
Yeah, I'm the guy that's just sitting there. I'll just get if I'm too far, a question's not happening. I'm not boxing anybody out. I'm gonna save that for the court.
Beat writing's a contact sport, bro. Like getting in the scrum, you gotta like make sure you get there, bro. And when,
yeah, you have to camp,
dude. When Dwayne Wade came back, that was the season I was covering them. Good luck. Like you're not getting. I mean, Tim Reynolds and Ira Winderman are they're like the Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum of scrum box outs. I'm like, okay, there's just no. I'm gonna wait by Jay Rich locker and I'm gonna see what Jay Rich has to say. Because like that was the meta, Brady. It would be like everybody is waiting for Dwayne, and I was like, well, that means no one's gonna talk to Jay Rich and Justice and Gogi, except for Coop. Coop would be hanging around Gogi, because Coop wants the good stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's about real hoops.
Yeah, Hoop's about. I hear he can actually like hoop. I hear he's a real hooper.
I don't know.
Sources tell me that Cooper Moorhead can ball. And listen, he might be needed to for the Heat guards, right? And we're going to preview our final positional preview today. We're going to be hards. We did bigs. We did both part of wings. We did power wings and finesse wings, Brady. We divided it because Miami, for some reason, had like a gajillion wings for their season roster. And now we're down to 4. 4 players left. We included Josh in wings a little bit because I think he'll guard some wings, and we'll talk about him today. But we're going to talk about Dru Smith, Josh Richardson, Tyler Hero, and my beloved Kyle Lowry. Brady, we're going to start with maybe the most polarizing man in this city. And no, I don't mean Tua. I mean Dru Smith. He might not even be the most polarizing guard on this roster. But certainly he has been the talk of the town on Heat Twitter. Brady, your reaction was what when he got the 14th spot? Now, we had kind of heard buzzes that they were going to keep that 15th spot open for either converting a two-way guy later or finding another guy. So we kind of were operating under the assumption that the 14th spot was going to be the final roster spot. And that went to Dru Smith. Obviously, Cole Swider was in contention. We had Jamal Cain, who I know we at Heat Beat were big Jamal Cain guys and gals. What was your reaction when Dru Smith, after all the Twitter praise for him, what were you thinking?
Honestly, not surprised. And even though I thought it should have went to Jamal Cain, it just felt like, for one, positionally, I think we could talk about right here, we're talking about guards, the fact that they needed ball handlers and guards. Now, you might say, why did it have to be him? Why couldn't it have been an RJ Hampton or somebody else off the book? Because you have not seen, I guess, too much, at least flashiness. But it is what it is because Eric Spoelstra really likes it. And it really comes down to that. When it comes down to those type of roster moves, they're trusting what he says. They're going to trust what his eye, his trained eye, his absolute ability to plug certain things in. And I mean, we can't really discredit that part of it, even though I think a lot of the people, I guess on Twitter and are evaluating are saying, like, what is there? And I mean, there's the one part of it that I disagree, where people are kind of discrediting his defense a little bit. Because I think once you start getting mad at a player and start picking him apart, you're like, I mean, his defense isn't even that good anyway. Like, I think his defense is valid. Like, I think he has good lateral movement. I think he can cut guys off. I think he has like a good on-ball ability. So that's one thing. There's the part about being kind of a guy that doesn't get in the way of your superstars. He's a guy that's calm with the ball, that doesn't make many mistakes. I mean, I that's the one part that I'm kind of pushing back on a little bit because I think there were some mistakes in the preseason. There were certain parts where I'm like, okay, he's kind of doing too much. But the way that they view it as he's not going to be playing in those lineups that he was playing with in the preseason. Like when they utilize him, it's going to be okay. Kyle Lowry's out. We need somebody that can just get Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo the ball and get out of the way. And that's kind of what he is, even though people may not love to hear about a guy that's getting this 14th rush, but that's just like go get away, like run away from Jimmy, get the ball and go. But yeah, I mean, I just wasn't too surprised. And as for Jamal Cain, as you said, you had to split up these episodes of Wings because there was so many Wings to talk about. Like they had so many versions of him that it was tough for him to kind of break in.
Oh yeah.
And he really started peaking in the preseason because like the Jamal Cain, if Jamal Cain was what we saw in the preseason all the way through this offseason and training camp and everything, it would be a different story. But like he really started peaking in the preseason. Is that my camera, by the way? That's glitching.
Good. You're good. You're we'll yeah, you are.
I don't know
what is going. I've never seen this before.
Am I being hacked? What
is Dru Smith hacking the system oh god.
Oh man.
Is Jamal Cain hacking to say his piece?
Man, I might have to leave and come back.
You might have to leave and come back. You can leave and come back. I'll hold down the fort as Brady's having camera issues here live on twitch.tv/Miami Heat Beat. If you're listening on the pod, you missed out. I mean, Brady glitched like and Brady Hawk is returning. Let me boot his camera back into the software. Brady, their chat is saying that I spread my camera virus because my camera very famously goes out a lot. They also said that they knew you were an AI. You're too good to be true. Yeah. So
wow. I was like Dru Smith. I just gave you the ball and got out the way.
You really did. No, I mean what it was Brady was a turnover, and I had to defend the inbound and try to get possession back. But we're here.
So, I mean, so we could pick up right where we were saying before, I guess, the last part that I was mentioning was if Jamal Cain really was playing like he was in the preseason for a longer period before the preseason, he would have gotten that roster spot. Like, I really do believe that. But I think there were too many lows mixed in with the highs that they're like, okay, we need a point guard. We need guards. Let's just take the guy that can do this when asked of him. And the last thing I will say, because I think Ira brought up a good point after it happened. He mentioned this previously to me, is like, if they were to want somebody to pick up eventually down the line, that guy in the 14th roster spot is the guy that's getting cut. Yeah. So, like, you're almost better positioned as a Miami Heat player to be in the two-way than the 14th roster spot, if that makes sense. Maybe not your pockets, but as a player in a system, like, yeah, it makes more sense.
They may want to convert two guys because they may, if Duncan, and we talked about Duncan with the Wings, if Duncan has an shooting season, which we hope he doesn't, but we've seen it. We've seen the shooting kind of regress at times, and Cole Swider looks to be 2020 Duncan. And if Jamal Cain looks like if Caleb Martin is struggling with a lot of knee pain in the season, and Jamal Cain really fills that role nice, I mean, who's to say that those aren't the two guys? Or you're just like, hey, we cannot. These are rotation guys right now. We can't live without them in the postseason.
Not the right guy to ask like this question about, but isn't like if you sign a 15th guy, no matter if it's a minimum, aren't you kind of into that second apron? Or am I wrong about that? Because I think that's where it gets a little weird.
I don't think so. I wish my cap guy Brian was on. I know from what I understood, they were leaving the spot open. I don't have the cap sheet. I can ask Brian. I can text him, but
that's where I think things can make it weird. But if it's not, like, yeah, it could make sense to do that, I guess. But it once again, but then you're cutting one of the guys if you want to pick somebody else down the line, if there's another shooter that becomes available or something. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think this is one thing that you keep the door open on, and then maybe because these guys, just because they're on two ways, are still going to be utilized throughout the season. So if they pop, you can do it later in the season, and then you can finally utilize them in the playoffs when necessary. So it's like it's a weird ground, but it's funny because everybody was screaming about the Jamal Cain Dru Smith thing. Jamal Cain probably plays before Dru Smith this season, and that like the contracts. Forgetting the contracts, like Spo is not looking at this team as contracts. Trust me. Like,
Oh,
that is
for
not what he
sure.
does. So that eventually, that if Jamal Cain got the standard and Dru Smith got the two-way, they were playing the same amount of minutes if it was vice versa, if that makes sense. Like, that's why I think the point that needs to be made.
It was odd, I think, for Heat fans, but I think it makes sense because of, they need, listen, they particularly don't have a point guard other than Kyle on the roster. Like, Josh is not a point guard, and he'll probably play backup point guard, quote unquote backup point guard. I mean, we talked last show, Brady. I mean, Hawkes might be a guy that does what you're saying, that they want Dru to do. Just bring the ball up. Caleb can do that. Josh can do that. Tyler can do that. There's a lot of guys that could just bring the ball up, and then let the Bam could do that.
I know, I was gonna say.
You know what I mean? Like, they have a lot of guys that could do that. So I just it is, he has gotten a lot of unfair hate. I think some of the bad stuff has looked kind of poor for him in the preseason, but I think the fan base has super overreacted. Not that I'm a big, we gotta play Dru Smith guy, but he's been in the system for a couple years. They like to reward guys that stick around. I think that's another aspect of this, because Brady, I kind of compare it to like a baseball farm system, where they like having guys in the system for a few years. Before Duncan got playing time, I mean, Duncan was like around the team. He was here when Dwayne Wade was here, right? He had been here for a few years. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus didn't get like real PT for like 2 years after just like being in, going to Sioux Falls, kind of playing, being the two-way guy, being the 14th guy, or 15th guy, whatever you count UD as. All that stuff. Like, that's how they've operated. So I think that they value a guy like Dru, who's been there, who's done the stuff. And yeah, I don't. And listen, they goofed. They did not get a real like backup guard in the offseason. You don't have Gabe Vincent anymore. You didn't get Damian Lillard. So, they don't have much of a choice. Sometimes you just gotta sign whoever's available.
For sure. And I mean, looking at him as a player, like we were talking about before, I think the one thing that makes people a little nervous about it is the fact that, okay, you have a guy that can give the ball up and get out the way, but he doesn't have the shot. Like, that's what I think really kind of, when looking at him as a player build, makes people a little worried. Because I don't know, I've watched his shot in camp a lot. Like, I've just watched it. It's just like, it does not seem extremely different, if that makes sense. Like, I think Jamal Cain totally changed his shot. Catch is higher, shot is higher.
Yeah.
Haywood Highsmith, total turnaround. And his shot is just like, it's not a consistent shot. I mean, it's a shot in the NBA that can get easily blocked because it's kind of a push shot. Like, it's not fluid. Like, there's just too many issues with that specifically.
Sean Marion got away with it for years. I don't know how.
Let's not compare it to Sean Marion, though. That's a little that's a little of a crazy comparison. But yeah, that's kind of thing that stuck out to me. So, I mean, he could be a decent guy you could throw in there maybe, and not be. I mean, his job is to not be terrible. Like, that's literally his job. The issue is, like, on Twitter, everything he does is going to be under a magnifying glass, like, going forward, because everybody already has that target on his back. But he just has to not be awful and just kind of do the little things. So, I mean, it is what it is. Even though, me personally, I know we're not talking about this guy on here, but I would like to see more of RJ Hampton, just because I'm just a fan of the talent. I'm a fan of what we've seen so far. I'm a fan of the defensive ability.
I know we are talking about RJ Hampton. I forgot about him.
Okay, I mean, I didn't want to.
He's one of the guards. Yeah, I'm sorry. I totally forgot about RJ Hampton. You're right. He's in my notes.
So yeah, that's it. I mean,
no, RJ. We can go right into RJ right now. I again totally.
I didn't mean to take it over.
Huh?
I was like anti Dru Smith. I kind of like demanded the ball there and did.
No. Listen, I'm glad that you did that. Last thing, by the way, before we transition to RJ, last thing I want to say is the idea of them just having a guy to just let Jimmy and these guys do work, I think is counterproductive, because at the end of the day, we know that Jimmy is pacing himself until around March, right? I think he even had the Instagram video where he's like at All-Star break, he's like warming up. He's like, all right, now it's time to try. He's that, he's the famous meme, the sitting up meme. And, for a guy like him to give you what he does in the postseason, which looks like totally like the most jaw-dropping stuff. You're like, who is this guy? It requires to take, he doesn't take nights off, but, he's going to give you 25 and 5 and he'll turn it up in the fourth quarter. But he's not, it's unrealistic for that guy to give you 110% every night. You need guys like, like last year, like, or the year before, Gabe Vincent, really steps up. Kyle Lowry has moments in the season where he steps up. You have Max, Duncan, Caleb. You have contributions from your role guys to kind of get you through 82 so that you say, hey, Jimmy, we don't have a home seed. Let's, can you figure this out? So that's kind of where it's like, I don't see a guy like Dru helping them offensively. I don't see him with the pull-up like Gabe. I can't really foresee him running a ton of pick and roll. Now, they have more shooting, right? So they have like Thomas Bryant could be like a pick and pop threat. That could be something that's interesting, kind of a new variation to their pick and roll game or whatever. I imagine they're going to go back to a lot of their handoff and their motion stuff, probably more Bam at the elbow, cutting, movement, all that good stuff when you don't have shooter. So it's a little bit frustrating when you're just like, you got to make it easier on Jimmy and Bam, not, hey, you got to do even more work to get us to the playoffs where then you got to really do all the work. So that's like the one area, but also it's like, what are you going to do? Like they struck out on Dame, your options were limited and they just kind of patchworked the best that they could.
Yeah, but I think the counter to that counter would be, if you're like relying on your 14th roster spot to make up for Jimmy being out, you're kind of in trouble as a team. So like it has to be the other guys you're mentioning. Like you were talking about who they had last year. It was the Max, the Gabe, the other guys. I mean, this year it has to be Caleb. It has to be Josh. It has to be a lot of these other guys off the bench. I think another guy, you mentioned his name before, very much so it's going to be Jaime Jaquez. That's going to be the guy that's probably going to step up more than anybody when Jimmy is out, just because they have shown, not just in the preseason game, but they trust him with the ball in his hands. They trust him actually more with the ball in his hands because he's not a traditional off-ball player. So it's like that's a situation where I believe they do have the guys to step in, but 14th roster spot Dru Smith, I mean, I don't think that's going to be the guy that they're definitely not going to be relying on him for the offense.
They're not. So let's talk about RJ, man, because he had a really nice showing his last preseason game. Showed them some downhill zip, which is really what the one thing that they're missing. I'm glad. Listen, anytime you can get a guy, I mean, he's talented, right? Like there's, whether it's polished or not is a different story, but like clearly there's something. He's athletic. There's talent. I'm excited for that. And I think that he's a guy that'll probably get a little bit more run than Dru early or when, there's going to be nights where Kyle plus one other guard is going to miss a night and he's going to get some chances. And Brady, I'm for one excited. I know that people, in Miami were really kind of delightfully surprised kind of watching his final preseason game. Where do you stand with him? Do you like the fact that they kept him? Do you see him kind of getting real playing time when others are getting hurt? What do you or missing time? What's your take?
Yeah, I think for one, I think the big question was like, what is he? Like, because he's a tweener.
What is he?
Like, what is he? Because like he's not a 1 and he's not a 2. But like after like watching
he's a
what
1
he did
here,
in camp,
baby.
he's 100% a 1. That's like kind of the overall point. And watching him play, like it was like they were kind of calling him the opposite of Dru Smith. And what I mean by that is like, for one, he's like the higher upside versus the higher floor, quote unquote. But I guess the big comparison between the two is like Dru Smith, you could trust more with the ball in his hands to make less mistakes. And RJ's kind of the high talent that could just be all over the place sometimes. But like when I've watched him, like he doesn't seem like that guy that's all over the place. Like he seemed like watching him in that one preseason game specifically. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to play in more preseason games because that I think would have pushed things in the right direction.
Yeah.
But he was really under control. Like he has speed and burst, like you mentioned, getting to the rim, but he's like knows how to use it. Like he uses it at the right time. Like he'll be driving and then he turns it on and zips kind of by the guy and gets to the lane. Like he uses it at the right times. I thought his pick and roll play was like really under control with some of the stuff he was able to do and just making the good decisions. And that's like kind of the stuff you want to see from him because that may be all the boring stuff, but he has all the fun stuff. Like literally the opposite of Dru Smith. Like he has the fun stuff to him. The shot looked good. Defensively, we talked about Dru Smith defensively. I think RJ Hampton is very interesting defensively too, just because he has a little bit of length to him. He can kind of do different things on the ball. I mean, neither guy you want on.
He looked nice.
I
think he has a role in the zone as well, like because he's so long.
He's a guy on the top of the press. I could definitely see that. So that's something that they'll value a ton. But I think that once again, it really might be as simple as this Heat team like always seems to lack talent on the reserves. Like it's always guys. it always is like that. So like you finally have a guy that has a lot of talent that you could kind of develop in the right way, and he's showing signs that he's like willing to slow down, willing to take a role, willing to take a two-way contract when he had no need to do that. So like he wants to be in the system. I don't know. It's just a fun player to kind of see develop because let's just say hypothetically, because you mentioned kind of Jimmy's out, what happens? Like let's say hypothetically Tyler's out for a game.
Yeah.
I think he's a good player to throw into the mix to kind of utilize some of the on-ball stuff. Not that he's going to do what Tyler does, but I just think he can have a little bit of get to certain spots that maybe Tyler can get to. So it's just something to
You
monitor.
get the aggression, right? Like you get like, okay, this guy is like clearly interested in finding his shot, and I think that matters, right? And he's a guy that can, has a real first step that can feasibly get by a guy, get by an NBA player. Because that's the other thing. I think sometimes we look at guys and like the NBA players are fast, man. It's rough out here in these streets. You know what I mean? And I'm a fan, and I think that listen, we all know that can you defend is the most important question to get minutes in an Eric Spoelstra on an Eric Spoelstra team, and he's going to be tested. And we know that some of their guard they are very. It's a lot of mixed reviews on the defense of the guard. Some of them are good. Some of them are good in certain situations. Some of them aren't very good in many or trying their best, I should say. They're some of them are just undersized, Brady. You know what I mean? Like they're very small in the backcourt. Josh is not, but and Hampton at 6'4", and he has some length to him. Kyle's I don't know if you remember that Atlanta playing game. Atlanta was really leveraging how Miami's low man was typically a guard, Kyle in most cases. And what is Kyle going to do off the Capella roll when they manipulate that low man? Not that the 4 inches that Hampton has over Kyle is going to make a huge difference, but there'll be moments where that matters, and I don't think that's a small thing.
For sure. And it's funny talking about like the guard room being undersized, and the reason for that is like, I mean, the wings are going to be guards this season, so it's like that's how they'll make up for it in a way.
Caleb,
that's the way
Hawkes,
Caleb, exactly. Like those are
handle.
guys that you'll plug in. I mean, Jovic, like Jovic could play guard. He thinks he's a guard. I think if you ask him what position he is, that's what he thinks he is. So, what were you gonna say,
Brady? I wanted to ask you. I know this isn't a wings show, but I'm just curious as to what you say because we asked Rohan this on our mixed bag show. Tiffany Meeks host, and she asked, who do you think gets squeezed out of the rotation? Because they have a lot of guys, you know what I mean, that are good, right? Like that. They have a lot of, they have a lot of guys that like deserve minutes. And Rohan said that he thinks that Jovic is going to be the guy squeezed out, particularly because he doesn't think he could defend at an NBA level, and that Spo's going to value a guy like Highsmith, guys like Hawkes, obviously, Jimmy and Caleb. And I don't think that's so crazy.
No, I mean, if you were to ask me that question, I would say the same thing. And it's not. I think mine's for a different reason. I don't think mine's for the defense specifically, which sounds pretty crazy. I don't know. He doesn't look like he knows his role yet.
I agree.
If that makes like I watch him offensively, and it's like I don't think they've had the point where it's like suppose like okay, you're gonna be this because there's too many times where it's like he's off ball a ton, which is necessary. Like you're playing next to Jimmy Butler and Bam and Tyler, you're going to have to eventually be off the ball. Yeah. But like I'm watching him as well, and I'm like, he kind of needs the ball in his hands. Like just as a playmaker,
why can't he be like Marketing?
Because he doesn't have Marketing's shot. Like I've watched. It's kind of as an ideal player, I think he can get to that. I think he can get to the shot, but I just think right now the spot up jumper and overall is not consistent enough for where it needs to be. Like there's like certain guys where it's like muscle memory and the shot's the same every time. Like you watch his shot and sometimes it's like it's kind of all over the place. But his skill set can still be utilized. I think the stuff off the catch and attacking is very much like something you can get to. Stuff in the open floor, even though pace is never going to be at the top of their bracket, is something that he can get to though specifically because that's like I don't think there's a better skill of his than just getting the ball and just going because he's so skillful like making those quick decisions on the break. But yeah, if you were to ask me who is squeezed, I mean, I think personally, with a fully healthy roster, Hawkes and Jovic are probably squeezed out the rotation.
Man.
So it's tough. I mean, but it's funny though. Even though I say that tomorrow, opening night, Jovic and Hawkins are probably both going to be in the rotation, even after having that
Highsmith
discussion.
has an injury, and is Caleb for sure gonna play? I know that
He's for sure playing, but he's going to probably be limited.
I have a question. Is Jimmy playing? What's going on with his dental? You're an insider.
I think randomly tonight they just put some numbing on it, so it just got better.
Oh, okay,
so he's good for the season.
Listen, people were joking. They're like, why is Jimmy ducking the preseason? You look why people Booker is Booker playing today? I don't even know.
I think he is.
Okay, well, gotta protect the goods. Okay, so sorry for the side. I had you here. I had to ask the question. I think it is an interesting question because they they literally have like 13 guys that you're just like, yeah, I can see. Chat says Jimmy's dentist is dead to them. Do we know what procedure he got? Did he tell?
No, it was very vague.
He's hilarious, bro. I love that. Might not even be a dental procedure. Who knows? Just whitening. Whitening hurts, bro. Have you ever had like a whitening at like with the things?
No,
dude.
No.
One of the most painful things. It's an awful procedure. It's not a procedure. They just like they put like some radiation thing. It's like a Phillips thing, and they'll like blast your teeth, and they make it real nice and white. It really hurts. Like fucking awful. Yeah, maybe Jimmy had that.
My goal tomorrow is to find out what procedure he had done at the dentist.
Do journalism, Brady. You're out here. Who else is doing that? You gotta. Yeah. Ira's too concerned about stories. Ira's concerned about who's like the third string small forward. He's doing his job. You have your job. We all have our tasks.
You're right.
Get Alex to help you. Get ask
hold
players.
Him accountable.
Yeah, no, hold him accountable. Which he's he leads the league in holding people accountable. Anything else on our boy RJ before we pivot to Jay Rich? Because
I think we hit on it. I think it's just a high ceiling versus a high floor. We'll see who gets more minutes, but as much as nobody wants to hear it, they're going to lean on Dru Smith more than RJ Hampton. It's not just because the roster spot. Spo trusts him more.
That's gonna drive people insane, Brady. You know how Twitter is. Whether they're right or wrong, they're gonna be angry.
They are. They're gonna be mad. He's gonna like they're gonna be mad is when 30 minutes before a game, Kyle Lowry's gonna be out that night, and Dru Smith's gonna be in the frame of the starting five on Twitter 30 minutes before the game. That's what's gonna get people mad because he's gonna have a few spot starts. He just is. I can guarantee.
Absolutely. By the way, chat is accusing me of getting my dental work in a basement in Hialeah that doubles as a vape shop. No, it was in Sweetwater, which might as well be the same thing. Okay, so I have some decency. Sweetwater's a little closer. Hialeah's a little north. Hialeah's far, man. I live in South Miami. What do you think I am?
Wow.
Yeah. All you Broward people and Hialeah people. That's far from me, man. I stay in my area. I don't go past Little Haiti. Little Haiti's great restaurants now. The GOAT. Let's get into Jay Rich because I'm excited, and Brady, I'm afraid that fans have put too much expectations on poor Josh. I think they think he's going to come in, and they think he's going to be a 38% shooter. He's going to handle the ball and do pick and roll, and they think he's going to, switch 1 through 3. And I think that's a little ambitious. I love Josh. Josh was my favorite player to cover. Josh and Goran. Nicest guys, funny, incredibly insightful, smart people. I love Josh. I'm so happy he's back. But we got to start with the shot. It's up and down. He has seasons where it looks good. He has seasons where it's passable. He has seasons where it's bad. And while he played his best years in Miami, Brady, if you're going to be a heavy minute player and you're playing next to Jimmy and Bam, you need to be able to shoot because those guys are not shooters, especially Jimmy in the regular season. Bam is just not taking him. Jimmy is reluctant and not a spacer, really. He's being helped off of. Mm-hmm. You need the other 3 guys to give you some sort of shooting because if not, you're playing in a phone booth. And we know that the problems with this team is it's offense, and it's predominantly that they can't get to the rim and they can't shoot. And both of those things are correlated. So I think with any conversation about Josh, it's going to be, can he shoot? And obviously, that's not a question we can really answer. We've barely seen him. How much did he play? Did he play a game in the preseason?
1, maybe.
Yeah,
one and a quarter.
You know what I mean? So I don't even know, Brady, how to talk about him because I think any conversation about Josh has to start there.
Yeah, look, the whole conversation with Josh to start media day, training camp, preseason was literally just about him being a point guard. So we haven't even addressed what Josh really is going to be yet. Um, Offensively, you mentioned the shot. I mean, good systems, I feel like teams figure it out, and that's what Miami always does. That's what they did with Josh. What is the other team that he shot really well with recently? The San Antonio Spurs. Like good overall systems. Uh, you just shoot better in. So it just happens that way. So I kind of do. I mean, look, the shot's probably going to be up and down. That's just the natural evolution of it. I mean,
No.
Max, what did Max shoot last season? Like 33%. Gabe shot like
Duncan
34%.
shot
Like,
33% last year. I know. I saw
I
that.
mean, but look, that's a whole other topic because looking back, I looked back at those numbers yesterday and it was like, it was crazy.
Dude, I had the same reaction. I was like, "What was that bad?" I go, I don't
Like
know.
no, like they were a top 5 defense. No wonder they were in the play-in. Like that's if you're a top 5 defense and you're in the play-in, like you have to be that bad offensively,
Brady,
which they were.
do you know that they had the 11th highest free throw rate per 100 possessions last season? That shocked me. I
It's
could not
crazy.
believe it was that high.
That is crazy. I mean, that's Jimmy.
Right?
It's
It's
just
Jimmy and like a salt-based sprinkle of Bam.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But Josh, I think to get back to what we were saying, the I mean, I wouldn't expect a ton of pick and rolls. I think him and Tyler are a really good fit, even if you're not a point guard in there. I think they just play off each other pretty well in theory. Defensively is the stuff that I don't even really I mean, it sounds bad, but I don't even care about the offense that much yet. Like just because of what he could provide defensively, uh the stuff specifically around screens is like what makes me intrigued because we've seen so much stuff where it's like their defensive base is like funneling everything to Bam, which is still going to be the case. That's just always going to be what happens. But it's like your guard that's being funneled to Bam that had this much room now is going to have like be attached at the hip with Josh Richardson because he can do that around the top of a screen. Like that stuff
They could
looks a
play
little
more
different.
drop, Brady. They could play a little
They
bit more
will.
drop.
I think there's certain stuff that'll change. We were talking about it earlier on Five on the Floor because we did like me and Alex talked defense for like an hour. But it was like they're gonna do different things where maybe they allow less threes because they're staying home on threes because they have guys that can get around screens a little more and they don't need
Absolutely.
as much help. Like there's certain things that really offensively will probably look pretty similar to last year. Defensively is where I think that we'll see the most changes. Maybe Bam, he's still gonna switch, but maybe he doesn't have to switch as much just because of the kind of the other defenders. But Josh is gonna be a big part of that. I just think the on-ball ability. We'll see how much he has the ball in his hands. If there's still turnover problems or maybe inefficiency, we'll see what the mid-range jumper looks like because that I think could be kind of like the sneaky asset to his game. Like if he's able to be a Gabe level mid-range pull-up guy, like you'll take that. Like that, I feel like would do good for
Oh,
their
dude, you
offense.
kidding me? That's a celebration.
It'd be amazing. Like that changes their offense. That changes what his looks look like. So yeah, I mean, I putting too much expectations on him is rough. Putting him, I know we keep having the point guard discussion, even though I think we know which way it's leaning right now, especially with the fact that he's not playing tomorrow. But it's like he's going to be in a good situation. I think if we get down to like specifics of who will be with off the bench, that is a scary defensive lineup. If it's Josh, Caleb, and Haywood coming off the bench together and doing that type of stuff, like he fits right into that mold. He could. I remember I asked him
Is
on media
Kevin
day, like,
starting day one?
yes,
Is that like
I
an 82 game thing?
definitely not because he's not playing 82 games. I mean,
Yes.
you just can't do it. I mean, look, his role's gonna be Myers, like 6 minutes, done. Like that's what his role's going to be.
No,
But
he's on
even with
The
that,
Luke Babbitt diet. We don't talk
Josh
about yeah.
McRoberts, yeah,
That's my
it's
guy.
gonna be like
That's my
those
guy.
those quick stints, not playing a ton of minutes. Like as much as everybody wants to see Jovic, he probably maybe starts a few games if Love is out and they move some pieces around. Like they'll do that stuff. But the overall point is like that's a scary defensive lineup to bring off the bench. I asked Josh about it on media day. Like I said, like what do you think of like when playing at the top of a press, like because they've done it a lot more since you left? And he's like oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm like if there's one thing that like I'm excited to see Josh in, it's just bothering people baseline to baseline the press. So I think that's kind of the part to it's kind of look forward, I guess, start the season.
I think that people are going to expect him to be what he was his rookie and sophomore year, and I'm a little
Mm.
worried about that. I agree with pretty much everything that you said. I think he's in a very good role where he's not going to be asked to do a lot on offense. He's going to be asked to kind of spot up, defend, maybe run a little bit of offense, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of good for him. Kind of get his got to get his stuff going, his body moving, all that stuff. I he has lost the zip, the springiness that he had early in his career. He actually lost it his like second year here, which was sad. So he's not going to be like very explosive, but I think kind of getting them to play more drop is just generally good for preserving Bam long term. I also think they're always Brady. The one thing I do disagree with, I just think they're always going to help from the strong side corner or the weak side corner. Like they're just that guy's always going to come because they just want to make sure that life is as miserable as possible for whoever's in the paint. But
my point earlier was that like fourth quarters, like I'm interested. I forgot to look at it, but I was gonna look at like how many threes they were allowing in the fourth quarter specifically, because I'm thinking about like when Spo gets the lineup that he wants, and it's 4 above average defenders and then Tyler. They're going to. I think those are the lineups at the end of a game, fourth quarter, that they're not going to help off as much, and maybe they're allowing less threes, kind of late in game situations.
It's funny because even in the playoffs, Duncan at times played so well that he made Spo play him, which was hilarious because you know that he wants to do what you're saying. He just wants to do it. He wants 5 Udonis Haslam's like out there. Is what he wants.
He wants a bunch of Haywoods out there.
He wants a fucking rock fight. Suppose I was saying, Brady, the last preseason game, Spo probably had way more fun than any playoff game he's ever had in his career. he was in heaven.
Man, whole lot of 48 minutes of Dru Smith. He's locked in.
He's a sicko, bro. He lived for that shit. He's so happy. He's like, man, he's fucking. It's so funny, dude, because he looks happy. The happiest I ever see him is when he's talking about his family and when he's coaching a bunch of two-way guys fighting for their fucking NBA lives. He loves it.
It's so true. It's so true.
Bro. That's my go. I love it. Dude, a fucking legend. When's the statue? God, when's the statue? I love Spo. Yeah, that's kind of what I got on Josh. I think the length help wise is going to be good. Like when he's a help defender, I think on the closeouts that's going to be good. I think they'll be comfortable switching him 1 through 3. We talked yesterday, Brady. I even think like not a lot of threes, but I think like the Jaylen Browns, kind of like guys with a shaky handle. Not to pick on Jaylen, I love picking on Jaylen. But, you know, kind of he has like that kind of like, I'm going to stick to you and be like, I'm going to harass you on ball kind of thing. So I think like those guys, I think he makes sense against. I mean, they liked using Kyle to defend Jaylen. That did not go well for them in the playoffs. They moved off of that pretty quickly. But I think Josh could take assignments like that. I could see him on Middleton as well, where he just kind of has to like be strong enough to push him off his spot. And I think he has the length to be able to contest. That way
he might be guarding Dame.
That's true. I forgot about that. That's gonna be Bam guarding Dame. I mean, that's gonna be the quickest switch I've ever seen in my life. Bam's gonna live for that, bro. I'm excited to watch those teams play, man.
I am too. But early in the season.
I know, man. October 30th, Monday. Fun. So we're gonna hit Kyle next. My boy. We were debating who to say for last, Kyle or Tyler. Brady, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm sick of the Kyle propaganda hate. I see Leif, your own Greg Sylvander, my homeboy. I see what you're saying out in the streets. The streets is listening. I see all the haters on Twitter. Brady, he's not that bad. I'm not saying that he's like, I'm not saying he's an all-star. I'm just saying that like he's not like Dru Smith but making $30 million. I don't know what to say. I don't think he's that bad, bro. Like Skinny McGee in chat says he sucks. Listen, he has moments where he looks really hurt. He was bad for stretches last year. I'm not pretending. And when he doesn't want to shoot, listen, man, the playoffs he was good. He's a 16-game player. I don't think he's that bad. I think if he's healthy, remember early in the season he had to play like a gajillion minutes when everyone got hurt or had COVID or whatever. I forgot what it was. Remember that stretch early where he had like, I don't know, he was playing like 45 minutes against like the
Wizards. He had that weird Wizards game, yeah.
Oh, so funny, a gif of him like exhausted. I don't know, maybe you disagree. I want your honest opinion on him. I think he should be the starting point guard. I think ideally you wish they had somebody else to be the starting point guard, but no one's better than him. And I think that, you know, if he has a decent shooting year, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, guys.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Who do I think is going to be the starting point guard? Kyle Lowry. Who would I have chosen to be a starting point guard? I've been saying I think it would have been Josh. Like that was kind of been the way that I've been leaning. I think number one, the obvious one, like Kyle and Kevin Love in the starting lineup, that worries me. Again, you could say starting lineups don't matter. You could say it's a 6 minute stint for Kevin Love. You could say whatever. But like at some point, like a bad start is going to catch up to you. And if you're funneling Kyle over the top of screens inside and being burnt on a screen, and you have Kevin Love that's trying to cover up, like you're putting Bam in such a spot that he is always of just trying to cover everything up and make everything look great. So like that's number one. That's just a tough place to begin. You mentioned the part of not shooting. That's a big part of this.
That's
Like
he has to shoot. He got to pull.
You are not Dru Smith. They are not asking you to pass it and run away. Like they literally need you in certain moments, in certain lineups, to come off a screen and take pull up threes that are open. Like take pull up mid ranges that are open. I mean, I'm not expecting the guy at this point to get to the rim a ton. Like I think that's asking too much. And I think he occasionally will because he does stuff where he'll kind of sneak in and do those underhand layups or spin around 3 times. Like he can do it because he has that ability, obviously. But that's not the thing I think people are asking of him. I just personally think he has to take the pull-ups. And if he's playing with, obviously, which he will be, playing with Tyler, Jimmy, Bam, and like I remember there was a play the other night, Tyler kind of had a good pick and roll play, passed it to Kyle in the corner, and he took like a contested corner 3 and knocked it down, like a really tough shot. And I'm like, okay, those shots are the shots he needs to take. You may saying, okay, well, you're asking for contested Kyle 3s, but like the only way you're going to move anything in this offense is if he makes his defender think about looking over at him once in a while and say, okay, I got to make sure he's still there. Make sure he's still there. Like if he becomes a non-factor when you're shooting have 2 attempts a game, you're hurting the offense. Like it just gets to that point, and especially when the defensive thing, and you may disagree, but like the defensive thing is problematic, specifically on the perimeter. Sizing up, 100%. I think he's really good in that range, and it's something that Miami has needed. Maybe less with Kevin Love in the lineup.
It depends on the player. Because like if it's a De'Aaron Fox, no chance. But and I may get laughed at this. I think like guys like Steph Curry that are not like beating you with your speed. I think he does it. I think he does an okay job.
Steph is coming around a lot of screens, and I'm just thinking about the fact that Kyle has to run through a lot of screens. It's just, I don't know. I've just seen
I'm a bit of a believer in that, but I don't disagree with you generally. I wouldn't want him to do that. I think you kind of want him on size up guys, use his size, all that. His base.
But the issue with that is if, let's just say it's forgetting the switches. You're saying, okay, well, there's I can't even think of anybody right now, but there's a 3 that we're going to put Kyle on tonight because he's probably better off guarding him.
Middleton.
But, like, it's the regular season. You don't want Jimmy Butler guarding the star point guard or quick point guard or all this because that's the lineup you're in. You have to do it at that point if you're putting Kyle on the 3 because this is no longer Caleb at the 4. This is Kevin Love at the 4. So it just makes things a little awkward.
It makes things problematic. I will say, in 77 regular season minutes, Kyle and Kevin – listen, they're plus 29 net rating, defense of 101 defensive rating. Brady, that's not terrible. That's actually very good. 130 offensive rating. Whoo-wee.
We're definitely not addressing context there because I don't even know the context. But
I don't know it either. But I just have Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love on 77 minutes. 130 offensive rating. What do the playoffs say? Let's check the playoff numbers.
I mean, they had a great Knicks series.
They were awful together in the playoffs. They were minus 23 in the playoffs with a 130 defensive rating.
Well, I appreciate the honesty, but I'll say, look, aside from outlet passes, which are the thing we talk about for both of them, like having 2 veteran older guys, it really is not a quick lineup. Like you're forced. I mean, maybe Spo loves it because then they have to play slower. They don't play high pace. I mean, other than the occasional throw down the floor.
Spo wants Dru Smith to walk the ball and organize the fuck
pass
out
it to Bam.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, they're going to be slower. Like it just is what it is. Like if you have these lineups, I mean, and what are they going to get to in the fourth quarter? Instead of Kyle and Love, what do you have? Maybe Caleb and Josh certain nights. That's a fast, quick lineup that you have with a bunch of defense. You probably have ideally enough shooting. Like there's certain things at that point. So, I mean, look, maybe we're overdoing the starting lineup thing. Maybe it won't be that bad because Ball will be in Tyler's hands a ton. He'll be able to score. You have Jimmy Butler, who, if you know you're not getting him from a playoff version, he is still like a walking bucket and
He had a
walking
great
offensive
regular
hub.
season last year.
He
Like
did. He did.
fantastic.
But there's just this cycle of like the drop off from like thinking in the back of your head of what Jimmy's going to be from the last time you saw him. Uh,
You've seen
but
the
look,
You've
that's
seen the
just
calendar meme, right?
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
of this cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts on Kyle. I mean, he has to. I'm not asking him to be a great defender because I think we were talking about before. I think he is what he is defensively. There's nothing that's going to change. Offensively, you can change stuff. You can take the shot a little more. You can take the catch and shoot in the pull ups a little more. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
So being honest and not like joking, he's not a point of attack defender anymore. He's clearly his body is not moving laterally like that way anymore, and kind of flying him across a bunch of screens is just like he's 38 years old. Like this is not that's not what you want to do, right? So what he does do for you, and again, this is less of an 82 game thing and more of a 16 game thing. He makes fucking plays, right? And those deflections don't matter in the regular season, but you get the right deflection in the playoffs, you beat the Bucks. We're being frank, right? They don't win that game in Milwaukee if he doesn't, get that ball or he made a lot of those plays in that series, right? And that's what you kind of want him. It's the veteran kind of in chaos plays that he's so good at. What he does give you in the regular season, though, Brady, is, and contrary to what Spo may want, as we said, he does get them. As Eric Reed might say, it's very giddy up, right? He gets them moving quick. I think he gets them into. I think one of their biggest issues, when the last year of Gogi was, they just took forever to get into sets. They'd be like 12 on the shot clock when somebody's coming off, and we counted. You know what I mean? Like, this is not that's not a guesstimate, right? Like it was that long. And I think that he helps them in that sense. I think he has shown in the season that they're, if he's feeling right, which again is a big if, which I understand, which is frustrating, which is why he should come off the bench. They should have a better guard that can do 82, but he can run pick and roll well, right? He has some erratic passes at times and he's a little ambitious, but I think for the most part, a very solid pick and roll player and very helpful in that sense. And we just need him to kind of take those pull-up shots and hit them as your camera glitches. Hopefully,
Yeah, I'm gonna jump out. You can
jump
talk
back
about
in.
Kyle. I'm being Dru Smith.
You're being Dru Smith. Yeah, chat. So I love Kyle Lowry. We all know that. Brady's great. You guys like Brady? Brady's great. This is probably great for the pod audience. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with Kyle. I think I've been pretty honest about it. I think I've been somebody that I'm under no delusion as to who he is as a player at this point, but I just think he's so valuable for 16 games. And I think you saw that, right? And maybe, of course, I'm biased because I love him. He's my favorite player. I'm not under any such delusion. However, when you have a guy like him that can kind of make those plays, I think he's one of the smartest players I've ever seen. That has value, and it doesn't translate to an 82-game regular season, especially when he's not coming off the bench. I think that his last good regular season was probably the year that they got the 1 seed because he was big time. And listen, maybe, and I'll say last year he was coming off that hamstring, and he did not look right to start the season, Brady, and he took a bit to get in, and I think we know that he went through some personal stuff and is going through some personal stuff. Hopefully, kind of stuff can come together in his life and his health can kind of hold up, that he can give them a good season. I think Brady, the last thing I'll say on him is what hurts the most is the playmaking going down. They need him to be a playmaker because when he's not creating for others and not shooting, you're just doing nothing, right? You're just $30 million of nothing. And I'll be the first to admit that. The shooting is going to come and go. The shooting will come. You cannot, at the end of the day, you can't really control that, right? You cannot tell Duncan to shoot better. He's trying to shoot better. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not a shot doctor, but what you can't control is your aggression and your playmaking. Can you create for others? He doesn't need to get a step. I'm not going to compare him to Dwayne Wade, but he's very good at using his body to create space off the pick and roll. He's good at getting guys on their hip, taking that one little dribble, see if the guy jumps, then kind of slip that pass in the pocket. That's what they need from him. They don't need him to like get Bam a bunch of lobs, although that'd be nice. You kind of just need him to kind of, can you get to 4, 5, 6 assists a game, in the season, hit a couple threes? That's what they need. And then defend when it counts.
Yeah, I'll quickly say, I just think the playmaking has to come from the shooting, if that makes sense. Like the stuff we were talking about, like if he's taking the spot ups and the pull ups, it makes the playmaking so much easier for him. And I feel like that's the thing where it's at this point, it's like his playmaking is not. I mean, even thinking before he got to this point in Miami, it's like his playmaking was always like based off people reacting to him, like somebody maybe dipping off a shooter and him making that pass, or kind of seeing what the drop defender is doing. Like if you're not changing what a defender is doing to you because you're not taking shots, like your playmaking is limited. It just is. So if he's taking some of those extra shots, now like a defender maybe once in a while is forced to go over a pick and roll with Bam. And now it makes it 2-on-1. And now he can have fun with making that pass to Bam in any way he feels possible, which we know he can do. So it feels like everything just comes from the attempts.
Brady, the one thing that I was disappointed when he got here was they switched. That was really the year when they were starting to cut back on the handoffs and be more of a pick and roll team. Mm-hmm. I actually like him more as a handoff guy in the system because, again, it doesn't depend on his dribbling. You just got to get him around that Bam screen, and Bam's a threat to roll. Bam's a threat to keep the ball and take a pull-up. Bam's a threat to pass. You can leverage Bam's incredible skill set along with your movement. And Kyle is, I think, now their second best movement shooter. I guess Tyler, the third best movement shooter. I think that's important. As I'll make you a deal, Brady. Hold on.
I apologize.
No, you're good. You come back one more time, and I'll have a solution just in case it doesn't work.
Okay.
So that's my spiel on Kyle. Chat's sick of me. I understand. It had to be addressed. Okay, it had to. If not me, then who? If not me, then who? Right? As we wait for Brady to come back, and hopefully his camera will work. As he, I don't know why this is happening, but hopefully he can come back and we can finish off the show with Tyler Hero as Brady returns for us for the third time's a charm, as they say. Brady, Tyler, I want to start by saying I was so impressed by the way he handled this offseason. The maturity by him was through the roof. Mm-hmm. His new friendship with Chef Trilly, true character development for both people. What a union. What are the odds? They really showed that friendship can prevail anywhere. And but jokes aside, like the way that he handled everything was just like more mature than 99.9% of any adult. He handled that way better than I would, because I'd be mother bleeping people left and right, considering everything that he had to go through as somebody who wanted to be here and everything. So I guess we can start there. We could just talk about his game. You're closer. You're obviously very plugged in, and you're close to the team. I was so impressed with that.
100%. I mean, he was mature to your point, but he also like took it almost as a joke, if that makes sense. Like he kind of had fun with it, whereas like he was like quote tweeting things and liking stuff and talking about getting a Dame jersey and this and that, where it's like some guys will like try to avoid it. Like they'll just, I mean, he's even tried to avoid it in the past because he was trying to learn this whole process. But like sometimes it's like this stuff is real. Like it's just real. It's like you're gonna see these people again. You're probably gonna see them the next day. You're gonna see them down the line, even if you were traded. That it's like sometimes you just have to approach it like normally, like any other person would. So I just thought that part of it was just cool to see, because I mean he's on social media a ton. He sees all of it. You see and he just has an experience. Like you could say he's mature for a young guy, but he's like experienced this than most adults. Like he's done it every season. Like as much as you say some of the offseason stuff wasn't real, he's seeing all of it, even if it's not real. Like even if he has to ask and they're like, okay, no, that's
how you're talking about them online. And maybe you may think that doesn't affect guys, but imagine people wish you were gone every day. That can't feel good.
The thing is, I think the thing different with Tyler is that like sometimes like if you saw that as a player, you like you get in your feelings and you want out. But like Tyler just loves Miami
He
so
wants to win
much.
people over. It sounds like he's like, hey, I wanna. It's a tough crowd. I want y'all to love me.
He does. He just loves the city. He loves the people. He
Hell
loves the
yeah,
Heat
baby.
organization. He loves everything about this situation. That it's like even with all of that, he's going to overlook that and still put in the work. Like, look, aside from and this is my perspective and everything because I just want to talk basketball. But like he just wants to hoop. He really
He wants to
does.
hoop.
Like he just wants to go out there and hoop and play basketball. And the fact of like when the offseason comes around and everybody's just about rumors, which I hate as well. I am so glad we're talking basketball again
Dude,
because I hate the whole rumor thing. That's the way he feels. He just wants to go hoop.
Brady, we didn't do a. Okay, well, we're gonna do. Your camera's glitching again. Well, it's okay. Look, we got this. I have a solution. Look, we're gonna put right here. Look at this smiling face. We got Brady Hawk. We have a still picture of Brady as his and look at that. This is live on air, guys. This is live. You know who else is doing it like this? Who. So that's what I'm saying. You know, this is live. This is a live production. Got the name tag and everything. Is that Jimmy or Bam? That's Bam. It's a chain. That's Josh. That is Josh. You're right. That is Josh. Yeah, Bam's much too tall. Look how happy you look. Yeah, no, I do too. Brady, I love that you said that you're sick of the rumors. We didn't do a show for I think the entirety of like August. I know I saw. I was like, oh boy, you guys okay over there? Like, that's Greg and Ethan. They should have just done it. They should have done like a 2-man game and you and Alex get the chat says that they can't hear Brady. Okay, can you hear Brady now? Oh, I understand. Yeah. Everything's fixed. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, Brady's back. Brady's back. I yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, guys. So that listen, what a show of technical difficulties. Yes. Now you can hear Brady. I see his audio levels. Okay. We're so back. We're so back. So
You're back.
let's real quick talk about we don't I went way longer with Brady than I had told him, so I apologize to him. Brady, let's be quick on Tyler. I don't think there's much to say about him other than, he need they listen, he needs to take more free throws.
Mhm.
How that happens, I don't know, but really that's the next step in his game. Can he get to the line 3 more times? And that's going to be the difference between him potentially making all-star teams and him kind of staying where he is. The percentages of his shot can go up and down, but at the end of the day, if you cannot get free throws in this league, you cannot generate reliable offense. And ultimately, that's what's going to determine kind of the success of his season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, you're seeing him try to get to the free throw line more. Like you're seeing him do it in the preseason. But like the issue with like developing that skill is number one, you either have it or you don't. Like you could say you want to get to the free throw line more, but like eventually when you're like when it exits your mind when you're not thinking about it in the second quarter of in November, like in a random game, you're gonna get back to what you know and what you do. That it's just hard to develop. That is a really hard skill to develop. The second part of it is like even if you are kind of grabbing contact, like you have to get the respect from referees. And that's what you're seeing with Tyler in the preseason. Is like he's taking it, he's trying to get to these certain contact things, and it's like the refs aren't calling it. It's like it's just a tough thing to develop in general. So I mean, yeah, that would be ideal if he's able to turn a couple of these long mid-range jumpers into contact drives and getting to the line. Like, yeah, that changes everything. That helps his points per game. That does all of that. I will say to add on to that, the thing that I think is probably more important and the thing that could probably help his points per game even more is upping his 3-point attempts. And that's something he's want to do. He's a lot of guys say, I want more threes. I want to get like my goal is to get more
Is
threes.
he at
That's a guy that
6 ish?
well, he was getting I think he got up, I want to say 8 last
In his
season.
rookie season, I know he was close there.
I think he was around 8 this past season. So like I mean it's tough to get up more than 8 in general, but efficiency's going to kind of get into that. But I just watch his game. You watch him in general, and it's like that's a guy that,
Yeah, he was
especially
at.
with
Whoa, yeah,
losing
he
Max.
was at 8, and that's his career high by quite a bit.
So seeing that jump, I mean, I think there could be another jump, especially losing Max. losing Gabe, who got a couple of attempts up, losing a couple of these guys. We were going through it. I think even Depot was getting up like 5 threes a game or something crazy. Like he was even getting the ball. So like you're losing a good amount of that. And yeah, some guys will pick it up a little bit, but you're kind of going to need him to get to those spots a little more, be efficient. I think he could do it off the pull up, as we know. I think you see a little bit more spot up stuff from him, just because I don't think people. It's funny because I even asked him about this. I talked to him about this at training camp. So I'm like, you come into the draft, everybody calls you a spot up guy, then you like become what you are. And like everybody now like talks to him like he's like, they forget that he's like an elite spot up shooter. Like he's a really good in that range in terms of just everything about his mechanics, the overall shot. Like I say it all the time. I've seen so many people like just shooting around, like specifically, let's just talk Miami specifically. All the shooters that they've had just like shooting in an open gym. There's no better open gym shooter than Tyler Hero. Like he's just a pure shooter. That I think they just have to lean into that a little more. Maybe he's talked about kind of less dribbles, less like a lot of that type of stuff where it's like less dribbles, more threes is easy to kind of take into that, where you don't have to dribble around and try to make plays every single time, even though they probably need that with no point guard. But mix it in a little bit more, maybe take a little more, not be afraid to kind of get those shots up. Like they tell Duncan and these shooters, if you're open, take the shot. That's the same thing they're telling Tyler now. It's like, we need you as a shooter right now, especially with looking around this roster.
He's a more reliable spot up guy than Duncan.
I would say, I mean, Duncan is his home is the movement stuff. So 100%. Pure spot up, I'm taking Tyler.
I'm taking Tyler. I'm taking Tyler over anybody. Maybe not playoff Jimmy. I don't know. Playoff Jimmy's different.
Oh, yeah.
That guy.
Or
that
Caleb Martin with his foot on the line. I don't know.
Oh, Caleb, foot on the line. Caleb, Hall of Famer. No question about it.
No doubt.
No question about it. Or Dwayne Wade when the shot clock went off. Just golden. Yeah, man. The one thing, and this is kind of the last. I don't think we have too much to say on Tyler, unless you had something to add. But I think the last thing I'll say on him, kind of piggybacking on what you say, is I'm scared if he gets his attempts up to 10, that's fewer kind of motions to the basket. I think a lot of his mid-range attempts come from him trying to beat his guy and realizing he doesn't have it, and then gets to that kind of snake sidestep three at the elbow. And I kind of think that's how that works out. So I'm worried that him taking more threes cuts out his kind of attempts to go to the basket, but he's just not. He doesn't get enough separation to really get to the rim consistently enough. His career high is 3.3 free throw attempts. It's just not going to cut it. And I don't know if he's that kind of player, Brady. My comp to him when he was coming out was Lou Williams, except Lou Williams like gets to the line 8 times. Other than that, he has the Lou Williams game. You know what I mean? Down to 6th man of the year and everything. But that's my one concern.
I'll say the one thing I'll finish with an ad is the defensive side of things. I mean, he's never going to get the credit in general, but he really has improved. Like he has made certain improvements. He works. Because I think the big thing is like when he comes down to the defensive side of the ball, like he's really actively trying to be a good defender. But the reason is because it's in the back of his head that he feels like he has to prove it, that he really like gives it his all. And I think I was talking with Alex earlier on the podcast. We said kind of like, how can they do things for Tyler as a defender? And I think the biggest thing is it's not that he like trying to keep him away from not like off the ball because he can't guard the ball, but I think he's actually a decent off-ball defender, that I think he could do stuff in that way where they kind of peel a little bit more off-ball switches for him and let him guard that weak side and kind of let him do stuff, because he's talked about he feels like he can do stuff in those passing lanes and kind of get steals. And he's done that. He even did that a couple times. I remember in that opening playoff game against Milwaukee. Like I remember he did some stuff off the ball where I was like, okay, like this is something you can utilize if you're able to keep him in that corner and kind of move around a little bit. And was good in that zone. Like we're thinking back with being on that bottom box of the zone, shifting around, or as supposed to shape shifting, just kind of moving around in general. I don't know. I just feel like he could be good in that kind of off-ball role if kept there as much as possible. The issue, back to what we talked about before, Kyle, Love, and Tyler, it's just like you can't really choose in those lineups where to put Tyler.
And
it's just
Duncan
whatever
too.
happens. Like,
there's
right.
going to be, we were talking last episode. It's like, okay, well, Duncan's going to probably come off the bench here. And, Jimmy, is Jimmy gonna come out first, and then like Caleb and Duncan come in? Like, then you have the problem of Tyler and Duncan, because you're gonna want to stagger Tyler and Jimmy, I imagine.
Mhm.
So you have like one ball handler who can score that you trust, and if you do that, I think you want Tyler and Bam together, and you want Duncan and Bam together, so that we're
Yeah.
back at the problem of Tyler and Duncan. But it's like, I don't know, man. If Duncan you might have to play Duncan if he's like shooting well. So you're right. It's a problem. It's a problem that they have really not found a great solution for. They just kind of get by in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they just really tighten their rotation. But it's an issue, and Kevin Love exacerbates that as well, which is I have questions about how long he will stay the starter. Brady, I said that the high end of their team is probably Highsmith shoots really well from 3, and he just starts at the 4.
I mean, yeah, I could very well see that.
That's like
I'm
the
a fan
ideal.
of that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's
If you've known what I've been talking about, I'm a big Haywood Highsmith fan. I'm a big fan of his game.
Yeah,
I think he fits what Spo does. I think he fits what this team does. I think the fact of the overall improvements that he's made, I'm a big fan of him starting. Is he gonna be the guy that like the lineup change into the playoffs? Like everybody's gonna be screaming about this Love thing starting all year, and then when it really matters in the playoffs, they're like, wait, Haywood Highsmith starting game 1? Like that's what I could kind of see happening. Because look, the jumper is legit. He's not just shooting well in this preseason. Like I've been pushing this since training camp. Like I'm watching his jumper. Like he has really changed his jumper. That the jumps that he's made, I'm like, yeah, this guy could be a starting 4 for this team.
I've been saying that for like all season, and I think that ideally he's like the guy that you want to do that. So we'll see a lot of fun stuff that we're gonna get to see them work through in the season. The other thing we didn't mention was Tyler. I mean, Tyler's such a, while he doesn't have length, he's a very active rebounder, and he's just he's gonna help them a lot in those instances as well. I think offensive rebounding is somewhere where I think he's probably more active than most guys on the team. And that's really an area where they were one of the worst teams last year. Their defensive rebounding was actually pretty okay. Offensive rebounding, not so much. So, kind of get active in those instances. And yeah, Brady, I mean, I would say that guards are probably, would you say guards or bigs are their weakest?
I would say guards.
Right.
I would have to say guards. I mean, I feel good about Thomas Bryant. And
I don't.
I do. I mean, I know this isn't this is the big man preview, but he's going to be good for portions of the season. He's going to have lows, but I just think in comparison, I mean, I don't know if you disagree with this too, but in comparison to past backup bigs, he is a step above them.
I just know that we're not giving this one a nickname.
Well, maybe that's why they went down.
We're staying out of this one. We're out of the nickname game. This didn't end well last time.
I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll get picked apart defensively. I think certain
That's
stuff will happen,
worry.
but offensively, I don't know. I think his physicality, they can move stuff around. I think they'll sit him in a zone a lot. Offensively, I think he gives them a different look than what they were used to behind Bam. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what they're able to do. But
we'll see.
Even Orlando Robinson could, when you ask that question, like Orlando, I mean,
I'm a Lando
he
guy.
Could play. He could play.
Guy. Yeah.
So that's why I feel more comfortable with the big man room.
No, I agree, and I think that their guards. I think the guards are really going to make or break kind of their floor. If the guards,
but the wings could be the guards, like we said.
I think the wings determine their ceiling. I think the guards determine their floor. Because if Kyle gives you nothing, and if Dru gives you nothing, and if Hampton's not there yet, and if Josh is okay, it's really where are you going? You know what I mean? Like you're really just an 8 seed fighting for your life. And if the wings are good, that answers a lot of questions. You know what I mean? That they have a lot of solutions to things. So it's going to be really interesting. I think we went pretty extensive with all 3 groups. I kept Brady for much longer than I wanted to. Let's take a look at what Brady's camera looks like. Oh God!
Oh man!
So goodness gracious! Put that back.
I've been hacked.
You've been hacked. You've been hacked by the Heat guards. Brady, thank you so much for joining us and spending all this time. You are so gracious. What do you have on deck? What do you have in the works to read? You are a great writer. What's going on? Anything to plug?
I mean, at Brady Hawk 305 anywhere that's possible. I think I even have a Threads account. I don't think I've used it ever. Uh, but that's the same handle everywhere. I'll be covering the game tomorrow. So look out for that stuff in Five on the Floor.
Check out Five on the Floor, the number one local sports podcast, right?
Yes.
Congratulations on that, man. People don't realize how difficult it is to dethrone Laker pods because they have a gajillion people. So
I know.
Yeah,
And Boston.
Hey, shout out to 5 Reasons, our friends, our colleagues, everything that they're doing over there. Shout out to Brady. Shout out to Locked On Heat, Wes and David, the homies. Shout out to everybody covering the Heat this year. I hope everybody has a great season out there. I hope you fans have a great time with this team. Let's please be a little happier. People are too angry on Twitter. Too many hot take Harrys being doomers saying that they don't even want to watch. Come on, guys. Let's be happy. We get Jimmy Butler tomorrow, hopefully, unless the dentist has anything to say about it. Brady, thank you again for joining us. Guys, we are live post-game tomorrow following Heat Pistons. Pre-game is no more. We're not doing pre-game anymore. We'll do pre-game sometimes. We may do pre-game tomorrow. Frankie's girlfriend's sick. Probably not. Don't count on pre-games anymore. So we're just doing post-games now as a reminder. We may do the occasional pop-up pre-game. And remember, on Friday for Heat Celtics, we have a special host for the post-game show. Alf is doing our post-game show on Friday. Remember, this is not hangover time. Alf killed hangover time. Alf's baby said no more hangover time. But Alf will be hosting Heat Celtics, so hopefully we get a win, and Alf can slander all of Boston as you know he'll want to. Brady, you've worked with Alf before. You know how rowdy he can get.
Oh, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So shout out to Brady. Shout out to 5 Reasons. Shout out to Heat Nation. We're another year, our 11th season doing this. Tomorrow starts our 11th season doing Miami Heat Beat. I love you guys for being here every step of the way and for listening to me for a decade plus. We'll see you tomorrow.